The phone buzzed at 2:36 a.m., and Dina's eyes snapped open in the darkness. It wasn't her phone. The sound came from across the hall, from her 16-year-old daughter's bedroom, Zoe's phone. Again. Dina lay frozen in her bed, counting the seconds between buzzes. 1, 2, 3, 4 more messages in rapid succession. Her heart hammered against her ribs as old fears clawed their way up from the depths of her chest. She had learned to recognize danger in the smallest sounds: a footstep that lingered too long, a door that closed too softly, a phone that buzzed in the dead of night when teenagers should be sleeping. For 3 months now, Zoe had been slipping away like water through her fingers. The girl who once shared every detail of her day now spoke in single syllables. The daughter who used to curl up beside her during movies now disappeared into her room the moment she got home from school. And the phone. Always the phone. Dina pressed her palms against her eyes, trying to push away the memories that threatened to drown her. She had fought too hard to build this life, this safety, this peace. She would not let anyone destroy it. But as another buzz echoed through the thin walls of their small apartment, a terrible thought crept into her mind. What if the danger wasn't coming from outside this time? What if it was already here, living in her daughter's pocket, waiting in the glow of a screen? The buzzing stopped. The silence felt heavier than the sound. Dina rose from her bed and walked to her window, pulling back the curtain to stare out at the empty street below. Street lights cast long shadows between the houses, and somewhere in those shadows, she could feel her past stirring, reaching toward her family with fingers she thought she had escaped forever. She had no idea how right she was. The next morning came too soon and too bright. Dina stood at the kitchen counter, watching Zoe push cereal around her bowl without eating a single bite. Her daughter's phone lay face down beside her plate, silent now, but Dina could almost feel it pulsing with secrets. "You were up late last night," Dina said carefully, pouring herself a second cup of coffee she didn't need. Zoe didn't look up. "Was I? Your phone was buzzing." "Sorry." The word fell flat, empty of any real apology. Dina studied her daughter's face, searching for the little girl she used to know. Zoe had always been beautiful, but now at 16, she carried herself differently. There was something guarded in her green eyes, something that made Dina's stomach twist with familiar fear. "Zoe, if someone is bothering you—" "No one's bothering me, Mom." Zoe's voice sharpened. "God, you act like I can't handle anything." She grabbed her phone and backpack and headed for the door. Dina followed, her bare feet cold against the linoleum. "Honey, wait!" But Zoe was already gone, the door slamming behind her with enough force to rattle the windows. Dina stood in the sudden silence, her hands shaking as she gripped her coffee mug. The apartment felt smaller when Zoe was angry, as if the walls absorbed her daughter's emotions and pressed them back against her chest. 8 hours. Zoe would be gone for 8 hours at school, and those hours stretched ahead of Dina like a test she wasn't sure she wanted to pass. But when fear was the only thing standing between her daughter and danger, Dina had learned to be fearless. That afternoon, she did what any terrified mother would do. She looked. Zoe's laptop sat on her desk, closed but not password protected. Dina's hands trembled as she opened it, her reflection ghosting across the screen before the browser loaded. Social media, messages, photos, and then she saw it. A name that stopped her heart cold and sent her stumbling backward from the desk as if she'd been struck. A name she hadn't spoken aloud in over 10 years. A name she had hoped her daughter would never know. The messages were all there, stretching back weeks. Sweet words, compliments, questions about Dina that made her blood run cold. And Zoe, her precious naive daughter, responding with trust and openness that terrified Dina more than any nightmare. Because the person on the other end of those messages wasn't a stranger grooming her daughter. It was someone far more dangerous. It was Zoe's father.
His name was Marcus Webb, and Dina had spent 10 years trying to forget every letter of it. She sat on Zoe's bed, laptop burning in her lap, reading message after message. Each word felt like a knife twisting deeper into wounds she thought had healed. Your mom probably doesn't talk about me much. I've missed so much of your life, sweetheart. I think about you every day. She kept us apart, but now you're old enough to make your own choices. Lies, beautiful, poisonous lies wrapped in the voice she remembered too well. The same voice that had once whispered sweet promises before the bruises. The same voice that had convinced her she was worthless, crazy, imagining things. The same voice that had nearly killed her. But to Zoe, reading these messages for the first time, Marcus wasn't a monster. He was the father she had never known, reaching out with love and regret. Dina could see it in her daughter's responses, the desperate hunger for a dad who had been nothing more than a name on a birth certificate her whole life. Mom said you didn't want to be in my life. I don't remember you at all. Why didn't you ever visit? She says you were dangerous, but you seem really nice. Dina's vision blurred. She had told Zoe the truth as gently as she could, that her father had hurt people, that he wasn't safe to be around. But how do you explain the complexities of an abusive marriage to a child? How do you make a little girl understand that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you most are the ones who destroy you? She had tried to protect Zoe from the details. Now she realized her protection had left her daughter defenseless against Marcus's manipulation. The worst part was reading Zoe's messages from the past week. The tone had shifted. Where once there had been cautious curiosity, now there was anger. She lied to me about everything, didn't she? I can't believe she kept us apart all these years. I hate her for what she did to us. When can I meet you? That last message was sent yesterday. Marcus's response made Dina's blood freeze. Soon, baby girl. Very soon. Dina closed the laptop with shaking hands. Outside, she heard Zoe's key in the front door, heard her daughter's footsteps in the hallway. In a few seconds, Zoe would walk into this room and find her mother sitting on her bed, surrounded by the wreckage of discovered secrets. For 10 years, Dina had fought to keep her daughter safe from Marcus. Now she realized the war had never ended. It had simply moved to a new battlefield, her daughter's heart.
You went through my computer. Zoe stood in her bedroom doorway, and Dina had never seen such cold fury in her daughter's eyes. This wasn't teenage anger. This was betrayal, sharp and cutting as broken glass. Zoe, I need to explain. You went through my private messages. Zoe's voice was steady, controlled, which somehow made it worse than screaming. You read everything. I was worried about you. The late-night phone calls, the way you've been acting. The way I've been acting? Zoe stepped into the room, and Dina could see Marcus in the set of her jaw, in the way she held her shoulders. The resemblance had never been clearer or more terrifying. You mean the way I've been finding out the truth about my father. Marcus isn't your father, Zoe. Not in any way that matters. His name is on my birth certificate. A birth certificate doesn't make someone a parent. Love makes someone a parent. Being there makes someone a parent. Protecting your child makes someone a parent. Zoe laughed, but there was no humor in it. Protecting me? Is that what you call lying to me my entire life? I never lied to you. You told me he didn't want me. The words hung in the air between them, sharp and accusatory. Dina felt each syllable like a physical blow. He didn't want you, Zoe. Not then, and he doesn't want you now. That's not what he says. Of course it isn't. That's how he works. He tells you exactly what you want to hear until what? Zoe crossed her arms, defensive and hurt and so achingly young that Dina's heart broke all over again. Until he hurts me the way you claim he hurt you? I don't claim anything. I lived it. Where are the police reports, Mom? Where are the hospital records? Where is any proof that he's this monster you say he is? Dina stared at her daughter, speechless. How could she explain that abusers like Marcus were experts at avoiding evidence, that emotional abuse left no visible scars, that she had been too scared, too isolated, too convinced she deserved it to ever call for help? How could she make Zoe understand that the most dangerous predators were the ones who never left fingerprints? He's been asking about you. In those messages, he wants to know where we live, where you go to school, what your schedule is. Does that sound like a loving father to you? It sounds like someone trying to be part of his daughter's life. And what has he told you about me? Zoe's silence was answer enough. He's turning you against me, Zoe. Can't you see that? He's using you to hurt me. Maybe you deserve to be hurt. The words hit Dina like a physical blow. She saw immediately that Zoe regretted them. Her daughter's face crumpled for just a moment, but the damage was done. He wants to meet me, Zoe said quietly, and I'm going to say yes. Zoe, no! I'm 16, Mom. You can't stop me. I won't let him near you. Then I'll go to him. They stared at each other across the small room, mother and daughter, both of them hurting, both of them terrified, both of them trapped in a web of lies that Marcus had spent weeks weaving. And somewhere, in some other city, Marcus Webb smiled to himself as he sent another message to his daughter. Don't worry about your mom, sweetheart. Some people can't let go of the past, but we are going to have a beautiful future together.
Dina didn't sleep that night. She sat in her kitchen, staring at her own phone, Marcus's contact information glowing on the screen like a dare. She hadn't spoken to him in 10 years, had prayed she never would again, but her daughter was slipping away, and desperate mothers do desperate things. The memories came whether she wanted them or not. They always did when she was scared. Marcus's hands around her throat, the sound of her own heartbeat thundering in her ears as the edges of her vision went black, the way he would apologize afterward, crying, promising it would never happen again, making her believe she had somehow caused it, the way he made her feel like she was going crazy. You're too sensitive, Dina. I never said that. You're imagining things. No one else would ever love you. You're lucky I put up with you. She pressed her palms against her eyes, trying to push the memories back where they belonged. But trauma has its own timeline. And tonight, it was 10 years ago, and she was 22 and pregnant and so terribly alone. Zoe's door was closed, had been closed since their fight 6 hours ago. Dina had tried knocking twice, but her daughter wasn't speaking to her. At 3 a.m., she couldn't take the silence anymore. She walked to Zoe's room and pressed her ear to the door. No sound, but a thin line of light showed beneath the frame. She knocked softly. Zoe? Honey, can we talk? Nothing. She turned the handle. The door was locked. Zoe! Panic fluttered in her chest. Zoe, open the door! Still nothing. Dina's vision started to blur at the edges. Her breath came in short, sharp gasps. The hallway seemed to shrink around her, and suddenly, she wasn't in their apartment anymore. She was in the old house, the one with thin walls and thinner promises, and Marcus was, stop, breathe, you're safe, Zoe is safe. But was she? Dina ran to the kitchen and grabbed the spare key, her hand shaking so badly she could barely fit it in the lock. When Zoe's door finally opened, her daughter was sitting on her bed, fully dressed, a backpack beside her. Their eyes met across the dark room. Were you leaving?
Dina whispered. Zoe lifted her chin, defiant, even caught red-handed. He's going to pick me up at the corner in an hour. No! The word came out strangled, desperate. Zoe, no, you can't! I'm done living in your prison, Mom. Your prison? Dina stepped into the room and she could feel her control slipping away like water through her fingers. Do you think any of this has been easy for me? Do you think I wanted to raise you alone? Do you think I chose this? You chose to keep me from my father. I chose to keep you alive. The words exploded out of her, 10 years of carefully controlled fear and fury finally breaking free. I chose to keep you safe. I chose to protect you from a man who would have destroyed you the same way he destroyed me. Zoe stared at her, shocked by the raw emotion in her mother's voice. He didn't just hit me, Zoe. He made me believe I deserved it. He made me believe I was worthless. He made me believe I was crazy. And when I found out I was pregnant with you, he wanted me to... Dina's voice broke. He didn't want you to exist. You're lying. I'm not lying. Tears streamed down Dina's face now, all the pain she had hidden for so long spilling out like blood from an old wound. I left him because I loved you more than I feared him, and I've spent every day since then trying to build a life where you would never have to know what that fear feels like. Zoe's backpack slipped from her hands. For a moment, she looked like the little girl she used to be, the one who crawled into Dina's bed during thunderstorms and believed her mother could protect her from anything. But I need to know him. I need to understand where I came from. You came from me, Dina said fiercely. You came from my love. You came from my refusal to give up. You came from every choice I made to be better than the woman I was before you existed. They stared at each other across the small room, both of them crying now, both of them broken and healing and terrified of losing each other. Outside, a car engine idled at the corner. Marcus was waiting.
The coffee shop was neutral ground, public enough to feel safe, but quiet enough for the conversation that would change everything. Dina arrived first, choosing a table near the window where she could see the parking lot. Her hands shook as she wrapped them around her coffee cup, but her mind was clear for the first time in days. She had made Zoe promise to stay home, had taken her daughter's phone, had called in sick to work. This meeting was too important, too dangerous to risk any distractions. Marcus walked in at exactly 2 p.m., and Dina's breath caught in her throat. He looked the same, older, a few lines around his eyes, but the same devastating smile that had once made her believe in fairy tales. The same green eyes that Zoe had inherited, the same broad shoulders that had once made her feel protected before she learned they could also pin her to a wall. He was handsome, still handsome, abusers often were. Dina? He slid into the chair across from her, and she caught a whiff of his cologne, the same cologne. You look beautiful. She didn't respond. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me. I know this isn't easy. Stop. Her voice was steady, controlled. Just stop. He raised an eyebrow, amused. Stop what? The act, the charm. We're alone now. You don't need to perform. Marcus leaned back in his chair, and there it was, the shift she remembered too well, the mask slipping just enough to show the predator underneath. You've gotten harder, Dina. I don't like it. I've gotten stronger, and I know you hate it. Do I? He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Is that why you've kept my daughter from me for 16 years? Because you're strong? I've kept her from you because you're dangerous. According to who? You? He laughed. The woman who used to cut herself because she couldn't handle reality. The words hit their target. Dina felt the old shame rise in her chest, the voice that whispered maybe she was crazy, maybe she had imagined it all, maybe she deserved what happened. But she wasn't that woman anymore. I cut myself because you convinced me I was worthless, because you made me believe I deserved the pain you gave me. Because when someone tells you every day that you're nothing, eventually you start to believe it. I never told you that. You told me that every time you hit me, every time you screamed at me, every time you made me apologize for things I didn't do. You have such a vivid imagination, Dina. You always did. There it was, the gaslighting, the way he made reality bend around his version of the truth. What do you want with Zoe? She's my daughter. No, she isn't. What do you really want? Marcus studied her for a long moment, and she could see him calculating, deciding how much truth to reveal.
You took everything from me," he said finally. "My wife, my child, my future. You lost those things because you chose violence over love. I chose nothing. You ran away in the middle of the night like a thief. I ran away like a woman trying to save her unborn child. Our child. My child. You wanted me to get rid of her, remember?" Something flickered in his eyes, a crack in the performance. "That was different. We were young. We weren't ready. We weren't ready because you were busy trying to kill me." "I never tried to kill you." Dina pulled up her sleeve, revealing a faded scar on her forearm, then another on her wrist. Marcus's eyes followed the evidence he had left on her body, and she watched him remember. "You tried to kill me the night I told you I was pregnant. And when I survived, when I left, you decided to wait years to finish what you started. You're not trying to reconnect with Zoe. You're trying to destroy her connection to me. You're using her to hurt me the way you couldn't when she was in my womb." Marcus leaned forward, and for a moment, his mask slightly. "Maybe you deserve to be hurt," he said softly. The words hung in the air between them, ugly and honest, and exactly what Dina had expected to hear. "Maybe I do, but Zoe doesn't." She stood up from the table and Marcus grabbed her wrist. His grip was firm, controlling, exactly the way she remembered. "We're not done talking." Dina looked down at his hand on her arm, then back up at his face. "Yes," she said quietly. "We are." She pulled free and walked toward the door, leaving Marcus sitting alone with his coffee and his anger and his plans that were about to crumble. Because Dina had learned something in the past 10 years that Marcus would never understand. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away. But sometimes the strongest thing you can do is stay and fight. And she wasn't done fighting for her daughter. Zoe was waiting when Dina got home, sitting on the couch with her phone in her lap and tears on her cheeks. "He called me," Zoe said without looking up, "right after you left the coffee shop." Dina's heart sank. She sat down beside her daughter, careful to leave space between them. "What did he say?" "He said you threatened him. He said you told him you'd call the police if he tried to see me." Zoe's voice was small, confused. "He said you were trying to poison me against him. Is that what you think I'm doing?" Zoe finally looked at her mother, and Dina could see the war raging behind her green eyes. "I don't know what to think anymore." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of 16 years pressing down on both of them. "Mom, why didn't you ever try to get revenge?" The question caught Dina off guard. "What do you mean?" "I mean, if he hurt you the way you say he did, why didn't you try to hurt him back? Why didn't you try to destroy his life the way he destroyed yours?" Dina considered the question carefully. It was one she had asked herself many times over the years. "Because revenge would have destroyed me," she said finally, "and it would have destroyed you. I don't understand." Dina turned to face her daughter fully. "Zoe, when someone hurts you deeply, you have two choices. You can carry that hurt like a weapon, using it to hurt other people, or you can carry it like a seed, using it to grow something beautiful. But don't you hate him? I used to. For years, I hated him so much it felt like poison in my blood. I would lie awake at night thinking of ways to make him suffer the way he made me suffer. What changed? You did." Dina reached out and touched her daughter's hand. "When you were born, I realized that hating your father would mean hating part of you, and I could never hate any part of you." Zoe's eyes filled with fresh tears. "But more than that," Dina continued, "I realized that if I spent your childhood consumed with anger and bitterness, I would pass those things on to you, and you deserved so much better than that. So you just forgave him? Forgiveness isn't about him, Zoe. It's about me. It's about choosing to heal instead of choosing to hurt. It's about breaking the cycle instead of continuing it." Zoe was quiet for a long time, processing her mother's words. "He's not the person I thought he was," she said finally. "When he called today, after he talked to you, he was different, angry, mean. He said things about you that..." She trailed off, shaking her head. "What kinds of things?" "Things that made me realize you were right about him." Dina's heart broke for her daughter. She knew exactly how it felt to see someone you loved show their true face. "I'm sorry, baby. I know how much you wanted him to be the father you dreamed of." "Why couldn't he just love me?" Zoe's voice cracked. "Why couldn't he just want to be my dad without trying to hurt you?" "Because people like your biological father don't know how to love, sweetheart. They only know how to take. I hate him. No. Dina's voice was firm but gentle. Don't hate him, Zoe. Pity him. Pity him? He's going to spend the rest of his life destroying every good thing he touches. He'll never know real love, real peace, real joy. He'll just keep hurting people until he's completely alone. Dina squeezed her daughter's hand. That's not a life worth envying. Zoe leaned against her mother's shoulder, and for the first time in months, she felt like a little girl again. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry I didn't believe you. I'm sorry I said those awful things. You don't need to apologize. You were looking for something every child deserves. A father who loves them. There's nothing wrong with wanting that. But I already have a parent who loves me. Dina wrapped her arms around her daughter, holding her close. Yes, she whispered, you do. Outside, it started to rain, but inside their small apartment, surrounded by years of photographs and memories and love that had been tested but never broken, two women held each other and chose healing over hatred. They chose forgiveness over revenge. They chose to break the cycle that had defined too many generations before them. And somewhere in that choice, in that moment of grace, something beautiful began to grow from the ashes of their pain.
Three weeks later, Zoe deleted her father's contact information. She did it quietly, without fanfare, sitting at the kitchen table while Dina made pancakes on a Saturday morning. But Dina noticed. Mothers always notice. How does it feel? Dina asked, not turning around from the stove. Like I'm finally free, Zoe said. The past 3 weeks hadn't been easy. Marcus had tried calling, texting, even showing up at Zoe's school once before security escorted him away. But each attempt had only confirmed what Zoe had begun to understand in that coffee shop confrontation she hadn't witnessed, but had felt in every angry word he spoke to her afterward. He didn't want to love her. He wanted to use her. Mom, Zoe said now, I need to tell you something. Dina turned around, spatula in hand, and waited. I understand now why you never told me the whole truth about him. I understand why you protected me from knowing how bad it really was. Zoe, no, let me finish. Zoe stood up, and Dina could see a strength in her daughter's posture that hadn't been there a month ago. You could have poisoned me against him from the beginning. You could have told me every terrible thing he did to you. You could have made me hate him before I ever had the chance to wonder about him. Dina nodded, remembering all the times she had bitten her tongue when Zoe asked innocent questions about her father. But you didn't, Zoe continued. You let me make my own choices, even when those choices hurt you. Even when I said terrible things and blamed you for everything, you never stopped loving me. Tears gathered in Dina's eyes. That's what real love looks like, isn't it? Zoe said. It doesn't try to control or manipulate or hurt. It just loves, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard, Dina whispered. Zoe walked over to her mother and wrapped her arms around her. She said, I want to be like you when I grow up. I want to love people the way you love me. You already do, sweetheart. You already do. They held each other in the sunny kitchen, surrounded by the smell of pancakes and coffee and the kind of peace that only comes after surviving a storm. Later that day, they went through old photo albums together, pictures of Zoe as a baby, as a toddler, growing up in a home filled with love despite the absence of the man whose DNA she carried. Look at this one, Dina said, pointing to a picture of 3-year-old Zoe on her first day of preschool. You were so nervous, you made me promise to hide behind the playground equipment so you could see me through the fence. You actually did it, Zoe laughed. I remember seeing you crouched behind that big oak tree. I would have hidden behind that tree every day if it made you feel safe. You did make me feel safe. You always made me feel safe. They turned the page and there was a picture of Zoe's 8th birthday party, a small celebration, just the two of them, and a few friends. But Zoe's smile was radiant. I never felt like I was missing anything, Zoe said quietly. Not really. Sometimes I wondered about having a dad, but I never felt unloved. You were never unloved, not for a single second. I know that now. And I know something else too. What's that? A family isn't about who shares your DNA, it's about who shows up. It's about who stays when things get hard. It's about who chooses to love you every single day. Dina's heart swelled with pride. Not because her daughter was saying the words she wanted to hear, but because she could see that Zoe truly understood them.
You showed up for me every day of my life. You chose me every day, even when I was difficult, even when I pushed you away, even when I hurt you. That's what mothers do." "No," Zoe said firmly. "That's what the best mothers do. That's what love does." As the sun set outside their apartment window, casting golden light across their photo albums and their faces, both women understood that something had shifted permanently in their relationship. The cycle of hurt that had defined so many generations before them, the abandonment, the abuse, the bitterness passed down like a family heirloom, had finally been broken. Not through vengeance or hatred or fighting fire with fire, but through forgiveness, through choosing love over fear, through a mother's refusal to let her own pain poison her daughter's future. "Mom," Zoe said as they closed the last photo album, "I want you to know that I'm proud to be your daughter. Not because of what we survived, but because of who you became when you survived it. And I want you to know that loving you has been the greatest privilege of my life." Outside their window, the world continued to spin with all its chaos and pain and uncertainty. But inside their small apartment, two women sat together in the glow of hard-won peace, living proof that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is choose to heal instead of choosing to hurt. Sometimes the most radical act is forgiveness. Sometimes the greatest victory is refusing to become what broke you. And sometimes, when you choose love over hate, you don't just save yourself, you save the next generation. You save them all.